What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer from Blue and Gold with our guest today, Spencer Holbrook, a beat writer over at Lettermen Row, covering the Ohio State Buckeyes to give us a preview of the game from the Buckeye side of things. Spencer, hope you're doing well, man. I'm very intrigued to talk to you and get your answers on some of these things because, Spencer, I don't know if you noticed, man, but Notre Dame's basically, if you look up and down the staff, there's so many Ohio State ties, whether you look at Marcus Freeman, of course, formerly an Ohio State linebacker, and one of his teammates, James Laurinaitis, is an analyst slash grad assistant. I don't know exact title, but he's helping out on the Notre Dame staff. You got Al Washington, who obviously coached at Ohio State last season. What's just kind of the feeling, whether it's the state media, fans, coaches, like what's kind of the vibe on that topic heading into this game?
Well, let's go one by one there then, Mike. Coaches, you're gonna be shocked to hear this, but they have great respect for all of the coaches there at Notre Dame. They thought Marcus was a great player. They thought James was a great player. Brian Day said Al Washington did a fantastic job while he was at Ohio State. The whole coaches fraternity respect thing really shined through when they were asked about it. Media wise, it's interesting just because we know that James has contacted Ryan Day before and was gunning to be on that staff, and it just didn't work out. I think timing is a bigger thing than chemistry there. And, Al was not really unceremoniously, but was kind of just let go by Ohio State to try to revamp this entire defense. And now he gets to go against the offense he used to see every day in practice. So it's interesting. Ryan Day said it's a small world. I have to agree with that just because of the connections there between the two staffs. But when you look geographically, it kind of makes sense that there's some connections there. They're pretty close schools. So yeah, it's an interesting matchup, but that definitely takes a back seat on Saturday at 7:30 when everything kicks off.
I'm curious about how the fan base views Marcus Freeman right now. Obviously, with our jobs, the message board component's such a huge thing, Twitter, so we see what these fans are saying daily. So just what is the vibe? Let's specifically zero in on Marcus. How does Ohio State feel about him? Because obviously he was a great player there. I'm sure they've liked to see his rise through the coaching ranks, but now he's a head coach on the opposing sideline. I'm sure a lot of Ohio State fans don't really like Notre Dame either.
Yeah, no, Ohio State fans have never liked Notre Dame, and you're not going to change that at all. I think it's going to be a fun environment because of that. But, I think they were a little bit nicer to Marcus before some of these comments that have come out, the unnecessary shot at academics at Ohio State. That was pretty obvious. I know that I'm sure he didn't mean some of the things that he said, but also it he said them, and those are just things that happened. And I'm sure Marcus would take all those back, and he did backtrack a lot of them and make sure to clarify. And he even came on. I thought it was awesome. He came on the radio station here in Columbus and made sure to try to clarify some of those things where he didn't have to do that, and he decided to, and that's important, I think, for him to stay connected to Ohio State. But these fans are not too fond of him right now, just based on the fact that it's a matchup that carries top five stakes to open the season, that everything rides on this weekend, and just those comments, they don't really sit well in Columbus right now. And maybe they'll be a little nicer to him if the Buckeyes get a win on Saturday.
Let's get into the game. Just how good is this Ohio State offense? Like, it seems like they have Heisman potential at like three different spots.
Yeah. How much time you got, Mike? I mean, we could go on about this offense, and I will. Trevan Henderson is phenomenal. I think he's the best tailback in the country when you look at everything that he can do. It's him and Bijan Robinson. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I don't believe has any comparable players, on the same level as him as far as returning production and just the skill set that he carries at wide receiver. CJ Stroud, who do you want, him or Bryce Young? I mean, it's a style thing on who the best quarterback in the country is. If you like the smaller guy that's more mobile, you like Bryce. If you like the pocket passer who's going to be talked about as an NFL guy because he's 6'3" and 220 pounds, you like Stroud. And so I think the offensive line should be improved. Running back is good. Wide receiver, check. Quarterback, check. Offensive line, you replaced a couple of 4-star guys now with guys who used to be 5 stars. Check. And then you go to tight end, and that's really the only unknown there. This offense can be as good as they want it to be. I've coined the phrase that, or not coined, but I've kind of stolen it, the phrase that they're going to get off the bus and score 40. Does that happen against a top 5 team like Notre Dame? I don't know. This is a good Notre Dame defense they're going to go against that could create some havoc for them with Brandon Joseph and Isaiah Foskey and the whole group. But, this is an offense that is going to get its points, on anybody, no matter who they play.
Yeah, you mentioned Foskey. That front seven for Notre Dame is excellent. Brandon Joseph, the transfer from Northwestern, who, of course, Ohio State fans know about. I believe it was that one-handed interception he had against the Buckeyes. But the rest of the secondary outside of Joseph is this, I want to say it's basically the same secondary. I'm sure Ohio State coaches and fans watched that Fiesta Bowl where that secondary got torched. So that will be a very interesting aspect is if Notre Dame can slow down that high-flying Buckeyes passing attack. Going to the Ohio State defense, are you expecting a high-scoring game? I mean, obviously, you think that the Buckeyes are going to put up some points, but tell us about the Ohio State defense. Can Notre Dame move the ball on it?
That's a little bit to be determined. I don't want to, not answer the question or tap dance around it, but this is a brand new system, a brand new scheme. You saw it last year in January. A lot of Notre Dame fans saw it. I think that game was on January 1st, but
Yep.
in that Fiesta Bowl, Notre Dame was able to move the ball, and then the Oklahoma State defense did what the Oklahoma State defense did best, and that's adjust and really kind of shut them down the rest of the way and make sure that they didn't get anything else in that comeback win. I hate to remind the Notre Dame fans, I promise I'm not a bad guy, but I hate to remind them of that. But this defense is predicated on making adjustments and being able to adjust on the fly. Paris Johnson, the starting left tackle, said at one point in camp the defense ran the same exact play 5 straight plays, and the offense had no clue they ran the same play because they adjusted to everything play by play just out of the same exact defense. And that's something that Knowles prides himself on. Being multiple is something Ohio State had to do because they were too vanilla last year under the old defensive, regime. And so now you wonder, is Tyler Buckner capable of beating this Ohio State defense that's going to be flying around, that's going to be physical, that's going to have the juice of 110,000 fans behind it with, trying to roll out the red carpet and unveil their new style of ball. I don't think this defense is going to really need much time to progress. I think it's going to be what it should be right off the bat. Is that a top 10 defense in the country? Is that a top 50 defense in the country? That's kind of remained to be seen. But they feel pretty good about where they're at right now heading into this first game.
Of course, Jim Knowles was Oklahoma State's defense coordinator last year, takes the job at Ohio State. So while Knowles didn't coach in the Fiesta Bowl, still was like a Jim Knowles defense. Of course, he was not on the sideline or in the booth for that game, though. Okay, Spencer, let's wrap it up. Give us. I don't know if you're ready to put out score predictions just yet. So if you want to go by the spread, which I think the last time I heard, which was 17.5, and Marcus Freeman says that that's bulletin board material. Wherever you want to go with score predictions, spread prediction, tell us what you think, Spencer.
Yeah, I'm starting to put together a score prediction because I've got to put one out at least by Friday or Saturday. At some point I'll have one, but I think I'll just stick with the spread for now because I'm not really set on one. I'm thinking it's going to be like in that 38 to 21 or 24 range. I just think Ohio State's going to be a little too much for this Notre Dame team. I like this Notre Dame team a lot. I think it can still get to the playoff, but I just think Ohio State's going to be a little bit overwhelming. Now, that being said, in the fourth quarter of a 38 to 21 game or a 38 to 24 game, does Ohio State get another touchdown? Does Notre Dame score a touchdown to tack on at the end to try to, create a little bit of life at the end? You could see it going like 38-28 or 45-21. And I would be, yeah, that makes sense. So right now I'm settled on about 38 to 21, but the late scores could change that a little bit, just whether Ohio State, can score again or if Notre Dame tries to push the envelope there in the fourth quarter.
All right, Spencer, appreciate you joining the show. I don't know if Notre Dame fans are going to like what you had to say, but at least some informative stuff to get a, kind of a look behind the curtain on, what the Ohio State side is thinking of the game. Appreciate you, everyone, for watching. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to our channel if you have not yet. To blueandgold.com, $1 for 1 year premium access.